If you haven't already watched my video on the calendars, you might want to do that now, since we're going to be talking about the difference between Western and Orthodox Easter, which is based mainly on the difference between the Georgian and Gregorian calendar. So let's get into it. Calculating the days of Pascha/Easter. Easter, the word, it comes from the idea of dawn or springtime, and it's very North Hemisphere bias, and we'll be keeping that North Hemisphere bias for all the symbolism following, and I guess that makes sense since Christ rose in Jerusalem, which is in the Northern Hemisphere. So, quick astronomy lesson. The winter solstice is marked by the shortest day of the year, and the summer solstice is the longest day in the year for the northern hemisphere. And spring, like fall, is marked as a season, astronomy-wise, by the equinox, which is both equal part day and night. The difference with the spring equinox versus the fall is that it's leading into more light as we slowly approach the longest day. And also, we have one revolution being 365 days, about, which gives us 1 year. The word Pascha is a transliteration for Passover. Apparently, the Aramaic version sounds more like Pascha, but the Hebrew is Pesach. And speaking about Hebrew, it's good to remember that quote from Jesus in Matthew, specifically Matthew chapter 5, verse 17, that he came not to abolish, but to fulfill the law. We can't forget our Jewish roots. A lot of the Jewish holidays that were celebrated Jesus' time and today are fulfilled and fleshed out in our modern day Christian feasts and major holidays. So Passover and Pascha reflect each other quite a bit. Sukkot and Transfiguration, Purim and Annunciation, Hanukkah and Theophany. There's a lot of parallels between our liturgical and ecclesiastical systems. This leads us to the Jewish calendar itself. It's a 12-month calendar. I forgot to write one here, but I will remember later and write it down. And it's lunar based, which means that the end of every month is the new moon. So every month starts with a thin crescent, and the middle of the month is the full moon, which is when Passover is. Typo here, it's Nisan 15, not 14. Again, another quick astronomy lesson talking about moons and their cycles. The way it works is that when the moon is in between the sun and the earth, it's a new moon. When the earth is in between the sun and the moon, that's when you get a full moon. One rotation of the moon around the earth is about 27.3 days for that to happen. But the actual lunar phase cycles from a new moon to a new moon or a full moon to full moon, that's 29.5 days. Which is why when you look at our current day months, or more specifically at the Jewish calendar, each month is either 29 or 30 days, averaging that 0.5 out, which gives you a total of 354 days for 1 year, which is 11 days less than the solar year. During the time of Christ, the Rabbinical Supreme Court had the job of declaring when the month began and when Passover was, and when the calendar would have a leap month to make sure that all their months stayed in the correct season. However, in the 4th century, specifically 358/359, Hillel II, since the temple was destroyed and could see that the rabbinical court would eventually fall apart, put together a 19-year cycle calendar that the Jewish community still follows today. And so Hillel fixed the Jewish calendar. Speaking of the 4th century, specifically 325 AD, so a bit earlier now, the Emperor Constantine heard news about the Arian heresy that was going on around and causing great chaos within the Christian circle. And so he ordered all the Christians to get together and to figure it out. So on their agenda, the first priority was the Arian heresy. St. Nicholas did some punching in the face and some bowels got lost. But also they talked about other things too. The second item on their agenda was actually figuring out a unified day for Pascha or Easter. So the formula that we all know and love, it has to be the first Sunday after the first full moon that's after the spring equinox or vernal equinox. One more last astronomical lesson for the day. Current astronomers will tell you that the spring equinox doesn't fall on just one day. Every year it changes from year to year, and it also changes from place to place where you are specifically on the globe. So it averages around March 19th, 20th, or 21st. However, during the creation of this formula, they decided that the spring equinox would always be March 21st. And so March 21st it is. The Gregorian calendar, that's March 21st, but on the Julian calendar, it's April 3rd. The trend for fixed dates continues as we move to the first full moon of the spring equinox. Again, this is not something set by the actual position of the moon, but fixed dates that were determined by the council. And these are called the Paschal full moon. And this is a 19-year cycle, cough, cough, regards to the Jewish calendar that they set up. So a 19-year cycle, each year of that cycle has a fixed Paschal full moon. And here I've written out all the dates for the Julian Paschal full moon, translated that over to the Gregorian calendar for your benefit, and the Gregorian Paschal full moon, because when the Gregorian calendar was invented, they also updated the Paschal full moon cycle to be a bit closer to the actual full moon. So again, both the spring equinox and the full moon, they're both fixed dates, and because they're fixed dates, they change based on whether you're using the Gregorian or Julian calendar. And that's the main reason between the difference between Western Easter and Eastern Orthodox Pascha. And then last but not least, the idea of Sunday is just Sunday. There's nothing special about that. That is the one unifying feature that we have across the board. Yay, we have something in common in the formula. The formula is the same for everybody, but what the variables mean will differ for the spring equinox and the first full moon, depending on what calendar you're using. Hey there, friend. I hope this finds you well. I did not realize how much thought went to all of this kind of stuff. Anyways, I have to make this brief because I did this in the morning so that you could see the light slowly coming into my window. Cough, cough, haha. But that also means that I need to get out the door and out to work. Anyway, for those of you on the Western calendar who are already celebrating Happy Easter and Jesus is risen, and for everyone else, my fellow Orthodox who are in the midst of Holy Week, Gali Anastasi, Blessed Resurrection, we are almost there, and no matter which way you celebrate, again, the fun of calculating dates on a calendar, that's a man-made put-together thing so that we can give glory to God. Don't let this kind of stuff trip you up. It's just cool to see how things all integrate and work together. But it's also not like these holy days were dropped from heaven and given to us by God. You know, we have historical realities and stuff, and it doesn't always match exactly with the science, and that's okay. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Sorry about all my, I was in a rush, I guess, even though it still took me an hour. Sorry for all the typos and missing Tamur. I'm sorry. I remembered. Thankfully, I put those holidays in. Okay. I'm Anastasia. It's been nice to see ya, and I'll see you all later. Bye. I gotta go.